should have
recording.
done is yeah, I should have, or I will go back and try to write in the music to get
Oh,
timing in
yeah.
there.
So
That became,
that was going to be actually you can do this in the tablature without writing out the notes, but writing out the notes would be another really good exercise for you too, and putting the timing in with the notes. And you also would need the key signature too. So like at the beginning there, you'd want to put the key signature for G. So that goes at the very beginning of every line in the notation,
okay,
which is
okay.
of course just one sharp. So you just put the F sharp up on the top line, right? But you can also with tablature, you can write the timing above or below the notes with just stems showing what kind of note it is. So, like in the first measure,
Yeah.
yeah, so you've got 2/8 notes in the first measure.
Mhm.
And what you could do is, you know what, let me print that and then just give you, and then show you. Oops, shoot, open the wrong thing. Let's get that away. Um, so, like, either over, you know what, since you have the chords over, you might put the rhythm underneath. But so for that measure of the 2/8 notes,
Yeah.
you would just draw a bracket under it that shows 2/8 notes, you know, two stems down like quarter notes, and beam them together. And that tells me that those two notes are eighth notes and there's only one beat in that measure.
Okay. Oh,
And
that
then
makes
in the next measure, what's the timing of the next measure?
okay. So the G itself, the first measure, um, is one. That's a quarter note. It's a dotted quarter note.
Very good. It's a dotted quarter note.
Yeah, because the two, um, is okay. So it's an eighth note.
Right?
Eighth note, and then the E. It's a quarter note, isn't it?
Well, how much time is left in the measure?
Well, let's see. We got one and the two, one and a half, two and a half. I think two is a quarter note. Um, the F sharp.
Don't forget what time we're in.
We're in 3/4.
Right.
We're in 3/4. So oh yeah, and so then the E to the D are 2/8 notes.
Right. So what you
They're,
have, go ahead. So what do you
they're
have?
linked again. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
barred together, right?
Right. Beamed together. Yeah. And
B.
so that's okay. That's, yeah. And so you only beam eighth notes together that are on the same beat, where the first one's on the beat and the second one's on the and.
Okay.
So the eighth note before that, the F sharp, is a single eighth note because it would have actually been attached to like the dotted quarter note. In other words, that eighth note, the F sharp, is on an and.
Yes.
So it is not beamed to anything. It's got its own flag making it an eighth note.
Okay. So there's below the F sharp. I just make a flag.
Right.
Okay. All right.
So let me do that on this page and show you how I would do it.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see that very well. Let's see.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Right?
Yep.
So we got the eighth note, the pair of eighths at the beginning,
Yep.
and then the dotted quarter. And so all you need for a dotted quarter is a stem and a dot.
Still
Then
in
the single eighth note, the eighth note with a flag, and then the pair of eighth notes.
Okay.
Right? So if if I have something that's only in tablature and no notation with the, and the notation would have the timing, but that's what I would do. And actually, this program that I use to create tablature, did we talk about this before? It's called Guitar Pro.
I've seen that in notes. Yeah, I've seen that.
It would be worth getting. It's probably $60 or $70.
Yeah.
Not so much. Like there'd be a bit if you were going to do this a lot.
Yeah.
Um, um, which, who knows? We might be heading in this direction, whereas you start writing down a lot of your own stuff, you know. Um, but the like learning to use it to write stuff down is more complicated. Is quite a bit more complicated than just learning to use it to read with it. But like why? The reason a lot of my students would have it is because when they take one of the lessons from TG, there's always a PDF of the notation that you've probably seen in many of the lessons you've taken down. But there's also a Guitar Pro file that, unless you have Guitar Pro, you can't do anything with it. You know, it'll just confuse your computer. But when you open it in Guitar Pro, you can then play it and slow it down, or play part of it, or you could transpose it to a different key. It's like you can manipulate it all kinds of ways. So a lot of people get it just so that they can play it and watch the notes. I mean, you can see, you can hear what it's playing, and then you can see what's happening there. So it's a really good tool for understanding reading better. And anything that you're working on, even if you're like watching my lesson and trying to, if it's very complicated, you know, you could have Guitar Pro just slow down that measure and play that measure, you know, loop it, you know, so that you keep hearing it, you keep seeing it, and then you kind of get it in your head. You know, most of the time, if something's very complicated in one of my lessons, I usually play it very slowly anyway, and as you know, like sometimes even with a metronome to make sure you understand the timing. But anyway, so pretty much every lesson that I have, and every lesson we have at TG, has the Guitar profile of the tablature. And it's actually very easy. Now, it's taken a while to get good at this, needless to say, but when I write stuff out in that, I kind of do what you did here. I don't write it with the notation, even though I know I could. It's much easier to write it in the tablature, and then it will create the notation.
Uh-huh.
And so, and so when you punch a note in, you have to have it set for whatever the length of whatever value it is, if it's a dotted quarter or something like that. And then for like in the tablature, you would just create those, like on the first beat, you've got 6 notes there. You've got that G chord. And so you would just punch in 3, 2, 0, 0, 0, 3. And you make it a dotted quarter note. And now you have that G chord as a dotted quarter. Now when you go to the next note that you're about to put in, the F sharp, you have to change the timing to be an 8th note. And there's like a little palette, you know, it's like you could, and there are keyboard ways to do this too, you know, as you get further into it, you know, it's like, so you first of all, you take away the dot and you change it to an 8th note, and now it'll stay 8th notes until you change it. So now you just put in those 3 notes, the F sharp, the E, and the D. You punch in a 2 on the, you click on the line, on the tab line that you want, and just hit a number. So the 2 goes in there, and it'll move ahead to the next spot, and now I punch in a 0, and then I move down, I click on the string below, and hit a 3, and then it's there. And then it'll bump me into the next measure. Sometimes you have to move it manually. I forget how you set it to where if you put in a note, it immediately jumps to the next beat, or you have to just have to move to the next beat by yourself. There are options, and I've just started using the latest version, which has only been out for like 2 years. I've been living on a 8-year-old version of it, and so I'm kind of going through a learning curve now with like all the improvements they made. You know.
Yeah. Well, I'll look at that. Yeah, I didn't know if that's what it was. I've already seen those files. Never knew what it was.
Yeah, yeah.
Never looked at it.
Yeah, so it's a really useful thing.
Okay.
So just looking a little bit ahead at what you have here. Well, actually, let me hear you play it. Let me hear what you got.
Okay. Let me see if I can. Okay. Gotta get my head in it here.
Yeah. Change gears.
Yeah, I did this. I did this all by ear. I didn't look back at anything because I wanted to see if I could do it by ear.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, mentally. I didn't even look back at the lesson from last time. So
Perfect. No, that's a great approach.
yeah. Okay.
Careful. Now, what do you want in the melody there? What's the melody note you need? Right, right. So when you put this G with B in the bass down, I think you still had your 3rd finger on the 2nd string when you strummed that.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. So we need to hear that B in the melody. Right, right.
Am I leaving that G in there or not?
No, no. So you don't want anything higher than the melody if possible. Right?
Right.
And,
Okay.
and actually in your tablature you don't have the B in there. So you don't have the note on the 2nd string. Do you see that?
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah. I did that part right.
Yeah. So
Oh, I need that.
yeah, you need to put a 0 on the 2nd string on that G with B.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
right?
There we go.
And then
Okay.
getting back to the rhythm for a second, the next couple measures, the next two measures have the exact same rhythm as what we just did there, right?
Right.
So many times, this may be getting the cart ahead of the horse, so to speak, but many times if I know that's going to happen in a measure, I'll copy the previous measure and just paste it in that next measure. Now I've got all the notes, I've got placeholders for the notes I want. I don't have to change back to a dotted quarter note and then back to eighth notes.
I see.
And I just have to change the notes. It already, so I stole the rhythm from the previous measure, but now I just have to go in and correct them to what the notes are, right? So like even here for your second chord, the first chord in the second measure, all you'd have to do is eliminate two notes in that G chord that you had in the first measure,
Right.
right?
Right.
So anyway, it's probably a little early to be talking about shortcuts in Guitar Pro, but that's, yeah.
And the G with B in the bass, am I still playing the open E up here?
No, we need to hear the B as the bass note.
Yeah, the B is the bass, yeah.
Right. So right here, you're only going to try. You're going to hit four strings, the four middle strings.
Four strings, yeah, four strings. Okay, so yeah.
Good. Now, one more thing, a quick little technique thing. When you're trying to hit, we might have talked about this, maybe not. When you're trying to like strum when you're trying to not hit the first string.
Yeah.
Did we talk about this before in any other song?
Yeah, we talked about muting the first one. Let's see.
Like on that C chord, put that C chord back on. Oh, either one, they're the same here. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can use your ring finger on your right hand to grab the string.
Yeah.
When you strum, and now we won't hear that.
Yeah. Tried that.
Yeah.
Can I sort of lay over the?
That's okay too. They're all different. Yeah, like in this one you can. See, this wouldn't work on the G with B in the bass though.
Right.
Well,
I sort of laid it. Actually, I could.
Yeah, that gets dicey because you've got one finger that has to be playing a note clean, the bass note, and now you have another finger that has to just be killing something. Sometimes you're almost better trying to kill it with the palm of your hand. If you're, anyway, we're getting pretty deep down this rabbit hole here, but you get the idea. It's
Yeah. Okay. I know the message here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know the message. So.
Now, what is the melody note there on that A minor chord?
It is that one.
Yeah. So, what you have in the tab is just hitting those three notes without the A, right? Without the A in the bass.
Oh, right, without the A in the bass.
Yeah. Which is not a bad idea because if we hit the A in the bass, it's really hard to hear that E as the melody note. But if the E is the lowest thing we hear, if you kind of just strum the three notes you have. Yeah. Now, anyway, so that's again kind of a focused strum. You're just trying to get those three strings.
Right. And starting with the E.
Yeah. Although actually, there's nothing wrong with having the first string in there since we're hearing the melody note as the lowest note anyway. We're already playing notes above the melody note.
Right.
So there's not a great reason here to not hear the E, the high E.
Okay.
But there would be a good reason to not hear the A, because then we won't hear that low E as the melody note.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, now what's the timing of this measure?
Okay, the timing of this measure is 3/4 notes.
Could be. Yeah, that would be the logical thing. I don't think it is. And if I play it for you once the way I hear it, you'll hear it immediately.
Oh, yeah, it's but it's okay.
Okay.
It feels like it should be actually. Maybe it's a dotted quarter note, but then you have the wrong number left. I don't know.
So here's what it would sound like. Let me take it back a couple measures. And
Okay.
here's what it sounds like as 3/4 notes. And I'm going to continue all the way to the beginning of the next measure, to the G chord at the beginning of the next measure, right? So there it was as 3/4 notes.
Yes.
Absolutely, it could go like that. Here's what I think I hear though.
Okay,
What
so
was it?
that made the open G a dotted quarter note, didn't it?
Right. So that's how I hear it, and that's probably that. But again, it different people would play this different ways. But I kind of hear that that G that gets that G a little more emphasis. It lets it become kind of the resting point. Bum bum bum, and the A at the E at the end of the measure is really kind of a pickup into the next phrase. It's not really part of that phrase. So in other words, that G is really the end of the melody, the melodic phrase that I'm hearing,
Yes.
right? And then the E is the pickup, kind of like those first two notes there.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, that's what I would do with that one is dotted quarter on the middle note, and then an eighth following it, right? And now, what is the melody note in the next measure, in the beginning on the G chord in the next line?
Um, let's see. It's actually the D.
It's the D. So what we want to do there is either put the D on the bottom or the top, not in the middle.
Okay.
You won't hear it in the middle if you just strum the whole G chord.
Okay.
So, because we're coming back to a G chord now, and we haven't been there for a couple measures,
Right.
I would put that D on the top so that it's the highest thing we hear because we're about to go into higher notes that are all now part of that same G chord. So we're really going to lose the focus on those next two melody notes if they're already ringing and we've even got a high G ringing above it. So in that measure, what I would do is cut out the notes on the top three strings. Just play the three bottom strings, the G and the B and the D.
Oh.
The sixth, yeah. Yeah, see now that D comes out. And now it's clear that that's the beginning of this long arpeggio.
Right. So that those are gone. Okay. Okay. So then it goes.
Good,
Okay. Now we're at the E minor,
right?
and this the melody note is that.
Very good. Yeah, it's the D, which is not obvious when we're calling the chord E minor. That of course makes it really an E minor 7.
7. Yeah.
The melody note is not the root third or fifth of the chord, it's the seventh of the chord.
Does the notation say E minor 7?
I would generally not do that because somebody looking at it now might think that means I should play an E minor 7 chord and I might play it the one finger way and then add this melody note here. And now I've duplicated that D. This E minor 7 right, we make E minor is this.
Yep.
We make it minor 7 by adding a D someplace, right? The open D is a terrible place to have the 7th because it just sounds like you don't even have a chord on. It doesn't sound much different than that, So that E minor 7 with one finger, I would almost never play with. And now the caveat to that is that's absolutely how you play any bar chord as a minor 7 out of the E family, is just with the one finger. Because now you don't have the open notes problem. It's just that 5 open strings sounds like garbage on the guitar.
Right.
And so if you're playing Down by the River, which is E minor 7 and A, you definitely want this. This is a beautiful E minor 7. It's not very practical to make a bar chord out of that and play the bars version that way, it takes up all your fingers. It sounds great. But even this, like I'm playing F sharp minor 7 now, it sounds great with all those strings at the second fret. So it's the 5 open strings that is bad. So I would stay labeling that E minor and but we've got the D written in there as the melody note. So it's pretty clear that if somebody's going to try to play this from what you wrote, that's what's going to happen. Now, I would also, you don't have an E in the bass right there in the tab, but so the 6th string should be included in this too, the open 6th string.
Should. Okay. Yeah, I was wondering that, whether or not it should be there. Okay. Okay. So, Okay, so but we're trying to get to that seventh in terms of the melody.
Right.
We want that to come out,
Yeah,
right?
and we definitely, just like we've seen in other measures, we don't want to hear the E above it.
We want the E above it, right?
But
Right.
that's easy enough to kill with your left hand too. You know, this for your fourth finger can be on here and kill the first string really easily.
Yeah. Okay.
Matter of fact, it's easier to kill the first string than it is to get it clean with that chord. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
My finger doesn't want to go that way. Okay. All right. Uh,
Yeah.
so I've got it written correctly though, with
Yeah.
three the E or the D on the top.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we go to
One last thing about those last two measures. So the timing in both of those measures, the G and the E minor, I hear as just straight quarter notes.
yeah.
But the next measure, I don't. The measure of C that we're about to, oh no, I'm sorry. Yeah, we didn't finish that measure of E minor, but now those other two notes, you're just going to add them on and then go up and get the note at the seventh fret. Yeah.
Right. Right. You get the note at the seventh fret. Then the note, then this measure, in terms of the timing, is the same as the first measure. Right.
Right. Well, it's only got one note after, but it's a dotted quarter on the first beat.
Right.
And then an eighth and a quarter, though. In the earlier measures, we had 3/8 at the end.
Oh, right.
Right. So it's
Dun, dun, yeah. Dun,
right. So it's just yeah. So it just ends with a quarter note instead of 2/8.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then this is where you're learning another new technique of hitting a note with the pick and grabbing a note with the finger at the same time on your right hand, right?
Yeah. So this, well, yeah,
Good.
this is what I was doing, um, and I was basically strumming through it though.
Oh, okay. So we don't want to do that here because some of those notes are not part of this chord.
Yeah. So
Although the top three all are. You know, because if we were playing a C, oh well. So let me hear you strum that.
okay. I was
Well, that's not too bad. There's
yeah.
one note in there that bugs me, and it's the D. Right. Okay.
Well, I can probably
Hey, it's hard to kill that, you know, because that's pretty good. Yeah. Well, that can always work. That's that same kind of sketchy technique of trying to fret some notes and kill other strings with a light finger, you know. But so I have here are a couple of alternate solutions to this. One is, one is you could play the bass note early and then strum. Not play the bass note on one. So you could come out of something like this. This is like a more advanced thought on it because I have an easier one than that in just a second. But I jumped to the harder one first. So I actually hit the C and the bass on the and of the last beat of the previous measure.
yeah.
So I moved it early so that I could hit it, and then I still strummed the top. I only strummed 3 strings on that chord
Right.
because which of those notes of those open strings that we just added are okay to play on a C chord?
On a C chord, well, the G.
Right.
There's an open G and a C chord.
Yep. So
And
that note, that open string is fine. What about the other open string?
D's not in it.
Right. So we can't. That's why. So when I just did that a second ago, I hit the 6th string and then just the top 3, the first, second, and third strings. So what
Right.
about the second string? What's the story on the second string?
Second string, the open B. Yeah, that's okay.
Why?
Because there's an open B. Well, that's not a B. Oh, no, it's not.
So what chord is it if you play the open B in it?
It's C7.
Not quite.
C major 7.
Right. And what are we playing in the melody here anyway, up the neck? What's our melody note?
Our melody note. Ooh, where was I here? 7. Yeah, we're playing. Well, this is. That's B.
Right. So the fact here that the melody note is B means we're really playing a C major 7 chord, and that means the open B is fine too,
Yeah.
right? So that's why it didn't sound weird when I just included that open note in there because the melody note is already B. This is sort of the same situation where we were just talking about with E minor. You know, we don't need to call this C major 7, but that melody note makes it C major 7. And that means that having an additional B in there just for the convenience or sloppiness of not worrying about killing it is totally fine.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the C that follows it, does that mean that that's just a singular C?
Well,
Because
how long is that note in the first place? What's the timing of this measure? Right. So for 5 of the 6/8 notes beats in that measure,
yeah,
melody note is B. Only for 1/8 note of the 6/8 in that measure is
yeah,
the melody C. So it's totally fine for even that open B to still be ringing.
yes,
You know, we don't have to fine tune that and cut it out or anything like that. You know, so really in this case, this is kind of odd, but you know, we talk about in a melody, you have a melody consists usually of what we call harmonic notes and non-harmonic notes, and the harmonic note means it's in the chord, and non-harmonic means it isn't. So kind of in this case, the B is the harmonic note here,
yeah,
and the C is almost a non-harmonic note as far as the melody's going because it's just a neighboring note for the B. I mean, you know, even though we're playing a C chord, we're kind of hearing that C as like an interloper. Like that note doesn't belong. It's the B that is the star of the show of this measure.
right,
Okay. So anyway, so that's how I play that measure. And again, you can hear the timing is it's a dotted quarter and an eighth and then a quarter, right? Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. And then in the next measure, the last measure of this phrase, you just go to a D chord. Yeah.
Make sure that I pick up the, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Really good.
and that's the when we come back down to the D and the F sharp.
Yeah, we would just start over and like so
Those are 2/8 notes.
yeah, the same two notes. Yeah, yeah, and it's no problem that the D chord that we just played stops, you know, because that's how we heard it in the beginning anyway, with nothing else going on.
Right, 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 right. But then the next line is exactly the same as the first line.
Yeah, and notice in this one, in the second measure, you do have the B in the melody on the second string. You've got the open second string there that you didn't have up in the first line.
Okay, I corrected that up there. Okay,
Yeah, yeah. So
okay, all right,
yeah, so
all
the
right.
second line just the same as the first, and then the beginning of the fourth line. I'm sorry, the third line same as the first, and then the beginning of the fourth line is just the same, except this time it doesn't go to E minor. It's still just G with B in the bass. So we do want to have more of a chord there in the second measure rather than just the melody there.
Okay, so we're gonna do the same version of, but let's see, do I have the melody right there?
Yeah. Don't forget, in that first measure of G, the melody note is the D, is the open fourth string. So remember what we did, what we changed at the beginning of the second line? We cut out the top 3 strings.
Yeah,
That should happen here too. The melody note is the fourth string open, the open D.
okay, yeah, it goes to there. Okay, but the G with B in the bass, I have to pick up. Okay, now I'm confused. We're going, we're going.
Right. Good.
Now here we're going here.
Yep.
Hmm.
Oh, careful. Your third finger's on the wrong string. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And now, you know what you did here? I hear this melody actually exactly the same as the first 2 measures of the second line. That the melody continues up to that note at the 7th fret.
So we're back to B at the 7th fret
Yeah.
as opposed to B as the
Yeah,
first
so you
fret.
shifted octaves there because it was much easier to reach that open B. Although it's not that hard. You can let go of everything and go get the high B. Let me play the melody the way I hear it here. So from the beginning of this line, we'd have this. No chords. Here's just the melody. So you have it real close. You have this, right? I'm assuming that on that D chord, you're hearing that melody note as the note on the third string, the D chord in the third measure. Um, but I think the melody in that measure goes from in the third measure. I'm talking about the measure of D,
Yep.
right? The melody I hear there goes from D to F sharp. It's an arpeggio on the D chord. D, F sharp, A, G. Now, the end of the second section is closer to what you did there, and so I think that's what you're kind of hearing is you're crossing up the two parts.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, so that's how I would do that melody.
Okay. So here was 7, and then you went.
What I was starting to do right there was just play through the second part of second melody, kind of the way I hear it. And I think that's what you need to do in the second section before you write out much more of it, is listen really clearly to that second section because some of it is very similar and some of it is noticeably different. So what I
Yeah. Yeah.
second
Um,
picture is
okay. You know what? I after okay. One thing.
sure.
Back to the D measure in the fourth line there.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
I didn't quite get that. So we're um,
Now I hear the melody note there as the D on the second string. So we don't want to hear the F sharp, right? We want to hear just three strings there,
then and then the F sharp,
and the F sharp, and then reach, and then the A. Yeah, and then the high G for the G chord.
then the high G. Okay, so that goes 2, 5, and then
And you can just reach up there. Yeah, and you can just reach up there and grab the A. Yeah, so you can just like go get the A like with your little finger out of your D chord, and then come back to a G chord.
yeah, and then we go
Right, and that leads us
pick
into the
up
second
the next.
melody, which means at the beginning of your second page, we want to hear the melody note at the beginning of section B is not the high G. We only want to hear the D. It's to D that melody is going.
Yeah, and I actually from the one that I sent you
Oh,
changed that page.
okay. Because actually, this doesn't have much on it. It's got just a little bit
Yeah,
of.
no, it's just and it's mostly wrong. There's not much on this one here, but instead of where I was there, what we went,
Take it from the pickup notes, the B and the C.
and then it's back to G.
Right, but the melody note on that G chord is not the high G. It's a D. Right,
It's this one right here.
right. And then your next two melody notes are right. It's D, D, B, G. Right, and then a high G like you had. And I hear the rhythm of the next measure, the G with B in the bass, as only having two melody notes in it. Bum, bum, ba, da, 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 dum, bum, bum. Don't hit the D again. Right.
And
Now the melody note is the high G. Right. So again, here's how I hear that melody from the beginning of the line. So that, with that being in this recording, that should help you out with the melody in the second part.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Okay,
that's how
okay.
I'm hearing it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to rework this whole page. Okay, okay.
Okay, you got enough to keep you busy for another week.
Oh yeah, easily. So Guitar Pro. All right, I'll look that up. See if I can enhance this here.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So
great. This is fun.
let me stop the recording here because I got something else I need to tell you.